It's time.
Yeah. All right. Good evening, everybody else.
Sounds
um,
working.
yep. Everything's working. We are good to go now. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Hot or Trash podcast. I'm your host, Brian.
With your co-host Victor.
And
All
I'm
right.
Michael.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just down one
Permanent
other
guest star.
person. Yeah,
The
we're down a
permanent
guest
guest
star
star.
because he's out there somewhere. But if anything,
He's
he
out there in
won't
the
be.
world right now.
Yeah, he won't be joining tonight, but that's all good because we can still run the show with just three of us here, right?
Yeah.
All right.
What?
Oh, yes, there's three of us, Victor.
Wild.
How many think you? You know what? We'll continue on. I'll probably edit this part out. I don't know. We'll keep it scuffed here today.
It's
Oh,
all
man.
good. It's all good. I'm
Podcast,
just
bro.
dying.
Come on now, let's get going.
I'm
All
just
right.
dying of heat exhaustion in here.
Keep yourself cool. If your AC is broken, yeah. But yeah, today's topic, I'm sorry if that went on like a terrible tangent. But today's topic, we're going to be talking about something that happened most recently in the game development sphere, such as the whole shit that happened with Unity. Now,
Oh yes. Fun.
yeah, to those that might be wondering too, why didn't we talk about this earlier too? A lot of the information was not out yet, and I myself made a promise too that I won't do any topics unless there's like an extensive amount of like information and resource out there for me to like look at.
hmm
Just because I
As you
don't like
should.
to do speculating stuff. Because that's how, in this case, people get you with those finance bros. All they do is speculate.
True.
But regardless, let's go ahead and talk about what the Unity shit. So, to those that don't know what was going on in the initial part of it, the CEO or practically majority of the leading development teams in Unity were trying to retroactively roll out what is called a runtime fee for game developers, really. To explain really what they were expecting with the runtime fees, it's anytime you could install a game that was made on a Unity game engine, anytime you would install it, it will tick it as a download install. And then Unity can keep that number and then send it to the original game developer to pay for that installation stuff. It's essentially they're paying you an installation fee, which is a install for 20 cents. Now, for those that may think that doesn't sound too bad, imagine how many of the most popular games you can think of which can get up towards like 1 million downloads. That will stack up. Now, the problem was the fact too that you saw on there that it did say the fees will not apply to you unless you hit your 100,000 install mark, or and also if you make more than 250 grand in revenue. The problem with the wordage about this is that they were going to retroactively charge you for all the fees previously once you hit that. So a lot of people were wondering, were they just going to charge you after you hit the 100,000 download threshold, or is it going to be lifetime? And they did say lifetime installs. So it's very terrible. If you look at, in this case, I believe there was a developer. But yeah. Let's see. Do you remember the game developer that essentially that he was actually gonna get screwed over to, because not only were like the downloads that he was gonna get was from the Xbox Game Pass, but essentially if Microsoft did not want to foot the bill, okay, we'll talk about that in a bit later too. If Microsoft didn't want to front the bill, they would actually send him the total amount, which was around way more. It would cost way more than he would generate in his revenue. Even if he made $250,000 in revenue, it would beat that revenue amount by twice over. Essentially, he would actually go bankrupt.
Mhm.
Like as soon as the game launches on like Game Pass. Now, obviously, that whole thing was like a PR nightmare for Unity, just because there were so many things about like how were you gonna keep track of these install and how was a lot of these gonna work. They were giving us a lot of answers, and none of the answers were good, to say the least. Let's say, for example, if you want to hop in here too, Victor, for other insights about like the events that led up to what we're gonna review at some point.
I'll jump in when I can.
Yeah. So, really, what ended up panning out for this suit, they had like a whole QA that happened to, is the fact that none of this was actually gonna work the way how they wanted to. They backtrack on the statement earlier to say, okay, no, we won't do the whole runtime to like the lifetime stuff here, but obviously we're still gonna charge you for every install after the first one. But even then too, it's still like a lifetime, because let's say, for example, you look at games like Risk of Rain 2 that has generated practically way more than $250,000, and it definitely did have more than 1 million installs. So it's like 1 million minus 100,000 from that. They would still be paying a lot to try to just keep Risk of Rain 2 like running, or if they want to develop the game further. But it doesn't matter now, because half the time how game devs would work in the indie space, once they get the money too for the revenue, a lot of it is either split in two ways. Either it goes into generating new ideas for their next venture products, or it's going into trying to maintain servers or maintain like any patch or whatever they want to fix in the game, essentially. Now, the issue that they also said too is like, okay, what about games that are on Game Pass? And they did say too that like, oh, okay, we won't actually give you the bill directly if your game is qualified in a Game Pass. If anything, we'll send it in this case to the distributor, i.e. Microsoft, Sony, or Steam, for example. And now that's the other big what the fuck moment here, being like, okay, first of all, what makes you think that either of those big companies would actually pay for this fee? Like,
or
especially
pass it off onto everyone else.
Yeah, and especially you try to say you're gonna foot the bill in front of Microsoft and Nintendo, because Nintendo did actually have some games made under Unity. So yeah, that is not gonna pan well for them. Now, obviously, I think we can say for certain too, Unity knew they definitely fucked up on that too, and they were trying to do a lot of damage control as they can. But there was also one thing that actually ruined the trust of everybody, where they instead asked them about, okay, what if in this case our games were pirated, right? Would in this case a pirated copy of a game would count as an install to us? And
yes,
they did not say no, but they also neither did say yes. They only said that they have proprietary technology that would help them sort through anti-fraudulent activities. Now,
and then they
the
would still hit
question,
you with the bill.
How would you know? Like,
that's
like, I'm trying to understand. How would you know?
Yeah, that's the thing too. That's what they asked him. Like, okay, how would you know? How does that look like? They just won't divulge in that. Now
They don't, because they're just not going to
This is
say
not
yes.
technology, bro.
Yeah.
It's just like the install count, bro. How are they gonna actually count installs for engines that are already existing?
Yeah.
You know, like if they count the downloads for new games made with their new engine that they're gonna release soon, then yeah, I completely understand that. But what about the old engines that never had this kind of counter to begin with, or whatever? Yeah, how does it work? I just don't understand.
Yeah, I don't either. And it even makes it worse too. That's just like when they community asked Unity about like how they were gonna do all this, that's all they could really give them, is that we have the proprietary technology to look through all this, and we will do our best to give you the most honest we'll bill you the most honest count that we can. It's essentially, the phrase is trust me, bro.
Yeah,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah. And now the problem behind this, again, if this isn't already a bigger problem, Now, this problem would have been in this case been thrown under a bus like let's say 2 weeks after this event occurred too, if it was dealing with like small like individual customers. But Unity is in this case a not a business to consumer, it's a business to consumer company. So if anything, their biggest customers is the businesses, and if they ruin the trust of businesses, they will at least say, yeah, no, fuck you. We're just gonna go somewhere else. And next thing you know, oh shit, no one is gonna pay for the next monthly payment fee of like the newer Unity Pro stuff. Just because the problem wasn't the fact too that like no matter what Unity was gonna say, nobody was ever going to trust them on it. Only because it's a sole factor of if they are that willing to like change terms of services, because that was the thing that people saw too. This was technically going way against their terms of service that they have stated previously, that they were trying to throw that underneath us while we weren't paying attention.
But at the same time, every terms of service always says that it's subject to change, so you can't really.
Yeah, you can't really
like.
Yeah, obviously that's not something to do that. But however, they did still go back on it because it is a PR nightmare for everybody. And I'll be honest too, I wouldn't be surprised too at the office doors you see knocking on there, you see lawyers from Nintendo and Microsoft. Microsoft probably less so, but Nintendo, oh boy, you don't cross paths with Nintendo lawyers. Because of them too, they killed off the Smash fighting game community. Anyways, that's a little bit personal for my case. I don't even play Smash, but I do feel bad for that community nonetheless. But really, because of that, they obviously backtracked on everything they said previously. And we'll get into the apology note for that. So in this case, for you, Michael, would you, in this case, running this business, would you even trust Unity, even if they backtracked on their statement? Or backtrack on their plan to like roll out this insane like runtime fee?
Am I the only one who thinks that people, or like a lot of people are going to shift around and change, but in the end, like everyone, like people are just going to head back to Unity? Like they're mad and upset now. They lost that trust, but like bigger companies will likely not step back into it, but your average indie dev is probably still going to step into it. I don't know. I figure once this calms down, it will kind of go back to being normal. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, probably will be the case. I mean, let's be completely honest. Unity is a big engine that a lot of people use and a lot of indie developers use. It's probably the biggest engine that indie developers use. So it's definitely it's hard to get away from that since it has a lot of support from the community. So if you ever need help and like if you ever need help in creating a certain feature for your game, you bet there's already a forum on Unity's forum for that, on the community forum. So I think for indie devs, it's definitely very hard to get away from Unity now. Although they did lose their trust now, it is indeed very hard. No other game engine has this level of support as Unity does.
Yeah, like if they were like newer and up and coming and they did something like that, I could see it dying. But it's pretty established. It's pretty popular. Everyone's going to calm down in like half a year or so, and then it's just going to go back to kind of like being normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do hope it doesn't calm down. I do hope they don't do that. I really do want Unity to die off. But I also want Godot to be a big thing. I'm just going to throw this out there real quick.
Yeah, go
because of their open source, of their free and open source nature. You know, like they're free and open source, so they don't have any royalties or anything. I want to, and it's an engine currently are still under development, but it's improving with each release. So I want to see more games in Godot. I want to see what they can do. It's getting a lot better.
I would like to see
2D. It's good. It's a good 2D engine, and it's also a decent 3D engine. So I really want to see what people can do with it.
Do we know of any games that are made from Godot?
Not personally, but there are a lot of games out there.
I just didn't know if like we had played one or if we had looked into one before.
To my knowledge, I think 99% of it's from Unity.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is the
Anyways, back to Unity.
yeah. So so really what it boils down to, you guys are right too, where like there are sometimes too, a lot of developers, even though you would think that it technically seems like it's calmed down and they're going back, a lot of the devs too, it still doesn't change that to the back of their mind too, that like we have to like we can't trust Unity for this too, because if anything, the trust is already broken. If anything, they'll still
Yep.
work with what
Yeah,
they
true.
currently have too, but there are already like plans of like some companies that are actively making the push. But whatever current projects that they are working on right now, they'll continue working on it. But until they feel like it is suffice enough that they don't need more support on it, they are already making headways and plans to try to transfer all of their production to Godot.
Or a different
That is-
engine, not
yeah.
Godot specifically. It may not
Yeah.
be. But I'm gonna be honest. Trust is one thing. Trust is just for like. I don't know. Like, let me be completely honest. Do you ever trust any company? Really?
Nah. But
Like,
that is
like Epic Games with Unreal Engine. I mean, do you really trust Epic to keep their word?
oh yeah.
I
That's
mean,
true. That.
a normal person would say yes, but maybe down the line they could do something where it would anger a lot of developers.
Yeah.
But I think, although very unlikely, because Unreal Engine's a very big engine that's used
Yeah.
by
Not just game
primarily
devs
by
that are-
big businesses
Yeah.
and by movie studios as well. I think it's unlikely because of the situation they're in, but you never know.
Yeah. You may never know what will happen, but at the same time, if anything, Unreal technically has like more sturdier grounds than compared to Unity did.
But
yeah.
I mean, that's
I-
because Unreal has majority of their users are probably like big businesses.
I
Mhm.
would say that like it's inevitable that they're going to do something that's going to piss off a huge group of people. Like I think it's like the nature. It's like cyclical. It's going to happen.
True. But at the
either
same
way.
time, it's
my
obvious
point
too
is
that,
my
like,
point was hold on. My point was trust.
mhm.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, sure, you don't trust Unity now, but eventually you're going to have to go back to it because truly you may be in a position where you can't use Unreal Engine because it's, too complex or overly complicated for your game. So you go back to Unity, or if you go to Godot, there's like little resources on how to actually make the game in Godot. So they just stick to Unity because that's what has the most support. So I don't know. Like, sure, the trust is broken,
But
but
at the end of the day, it is
Uh,
like the developer's choice on what they go with from here.
yeah, true. But what I'm saying is, if Unity tries something again, the same the same like outburst would happen, and then they'll just backtrack on it.
Yeah.
That's just how it is with any company. When they come out with some stupid ass idea like this runtime fee that Unity did, and people just creates a giant uproar about it, then they're just gonna backtrack, and it's just gonna return to the same thing,
Yeah. And
it was before this whole new idea came out. And
yeah.
I think it'll be fine. I think Unity's, as much as I don't like Unity, I think they'll be fine.
It was like, are they, in this case, it's the question of like, are they better off now than they were before the announcement? Probably not. It'll probably take
Most
a lot
definitely not.
longer to, it'll probably take a lot longer to try to build up that community trust again. But at the same
Yeah.
time, it was obviously a mistake too, that especially what ended up happening too is that a lot of people within Unity were protesting against, in this case, publishing and in this case, releasing this plan to the public just because it would obviously create outrage. And this is mostly unconfirmed internal sources, by the way, that they said too that when they brought it up to like upper management too, they mentioned of like they were going to have their troubles or their worries noted or concerns noted, and they kind of try to reassure them of that. And next thing you know, they released this and everything just went to shitstorm, and everybody in the development studio were under like damage control. Because especially they knew that this would happen. But they went with it anyways.
I feel like sometimes the executives or the people higher up are just like wishing that nothing would happen.
Yeah.
It's because like obviously like let's be honest here, me and Victor have actually did some financial investigations on Unity too. And let's just say this, they were bleeding money like heavily.
Yeah, I mean they are startups, so it's not surprising that all
Yeah.
startups bleed money.
Yeah.
I mean, their approach of using the runtime fee as a way to make money was a mistake, as you can
Mhm.
clearly see by the outrage from the entire community. But I think their solution made it worse than it should have been, worse than
Yeah.
their original like subscription-based model, which is extremely bizarre. Like, why would you? Your goal was to make money, and now you came out with a system. They came out with a proposal that could make more money that you ended up having to revise and now makes less money than your original model did.
What's their
Yeah.
solution now?
Oh, we'll get to
It's
that
so
soon.
bizarre. Yeah, we'll
Okay.
get to it soon, but it's a bizarre thinking that some of these business owners have, or some of these people running these businesses have.
Like
I don't understand the thought process going through this. Like, why have a decent model and then ruin it with by just like shoving in people's faces like a bunch of fees.
yeah. And the thing about that too was the fact that Unity was in this case a rival to Unreal Engine when it came to like being like the most easily accessible game engine for people to get right now to start game development. And obviously not a lot of people in this case had like high opinions of Unity in the first place, but it was a starting point to like have people learn how to make games off of like any game engine. Now, the proposal regardless is like bad enough. Shit, I feel like I'm gonna be rambling on here. Hold on.
Keep going.
Sorry. I lost my train of thought as soon as I mentioned that shit. But obviously a lot of the indie space right now, this is mostly like we're going to be referencing more about like the indie development space just because these are in this case the very first people that are impacted by this. We can care less about like AAA devs that use Unity, whatnot. They have the capital to like pay whatever bullshit Unity does regardless. That's not what we're concerned about. But obviously Unity's like biggest audience was in this case like indie developers. Now, sure, your biggest customers happens to be like Microsoft or Nintendo, but your majority customer base are indie developers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a matter of like they were in this case using this runtime fee to target a couple of things here. So first of all the Genshin games, all the MiHoYo games that are being thrown out to, they were all made on Unity. So essentially what the runtime fee was doing is that it was mostly targeting the mobile space because Unity has actually a really good system to develop games on mobile. That was the reason for that.
But do
Yeah,
mobile games
actually-
notoriously make good money?
Microtransactions.
It depends. The big ones do.
Yeah. If
But I feel like-
it's been, go for it.
I feel like if that was their target, like I feel like, yeah, the big ones make money, but normally, I feel like mobile games don't really make a whole lot of money, and if they do, it's based purely on ads.
Yeah,
I feel like that would just kill the mobile market. I feel
no.
like it was going to nuke the mobile market
No,
and
this
only leave
was
like the bigger people.
Yeah, that
And
was
it should
essentially what was
nuke the
happening.
market.
It should nuke the mobile market because fuck that.
It
Fuck
should,
Raid
bro.
Shadow Legends.
There's so many mobile games, bro. It's crazy.
Has I ever seen like those shitty mobile game ads that
Coming
clearly
from
that's
a
not
mobile game developer. Coming from a mobile game developer himself.
To be fair though, Victor, you only designed like 2 mobile games.
4, thank you.
Okay, fine. That's 2 more, all right?
That's doubled. That's squared. Thank you.
That's double the work.
But regardless, this, yes, it would have in this case targeted a lot of those mobile games to begin with, especially like the shitty mobile games that you see on there. Like, I don't remember, like there's a bunch of ads that show the gameplay of it, but you in the back of your mind when you see this, you clearly know that's not how the game is played. And you're like, but how
Oh,
would you know
yes,
if you didn't
those
install
games.
it? But I was like, why would I install a mobile game?
Yeah, those mobile ads, bro.
Yeah. So it's like, it's mostly targeting like those types of games. And also, yes, they would also, in this case, target Raid Shadow Legends. People have mixed feelings about that game, but you know what? Raid Shadow Legends, if you want to sponsor this podcast, I'm well more than welcome to. And I'll even make a set.
We're open.
We're open
Raid
to
We're
hear.
Shadow
open for
Legends.
anything.
But really, that was the intended reason why they were doing it. And we also figured out a couple reasons as well. Because originally there was another mobile analytics company called AppLovin that originally wanted to buy Unity for around, I think it was $2 billion or some absurd amount of money. And what Unity ended up doing is that they rejected the offer and they bought out another mobile analytics company that technically is a rival to that called like Iron Source or whatever it was called, regardless what it was. And what they found out too, or what we found out from a lot of like, in this case, leaked messages, emails, and whatnot too, was the fact that if you, in this case, as an app developer, mobile app developer, if you, in this case, do not use AppLovin as your mobile analytics source and use Unity's proprietary mobile analytics that's built into Unity engine, they would actually give you a waiver that goes above around 80% to free, essentially, of like paying the lifetime fees or the runtime fees. It was essentially they wanted to kill AppLovin through in the way that they're incentivizing you to use the engine's proprietary system so that you are given a free waiver to not really pay for the runtime fee.
What?
Yeah, it's fucking backwards, and it's just like, what the hell? Now, I don't know if that's still a good reason nonetheless. But just to put that news out there too, yeah, there was a mobile analytics company that was actually close to just straight up buying out Unity.
You should have done it.
They probably should have. If anything, they probably would have made a lot more money to keep themselves afloat for a few years longer, maybe. But obviously, that's not the choice that they went for.
Mm-hmm.
Because based on what I think people have said too, if AppLovin decided to buy Unity 2, it would also lessen the share values of like each like owner in Unity. I think that was the only reason why they didn't outright want to get buyout by AppLovin. In this
I wonder
case,
what
it
that
would
would have
be-
looked like.
Who knows? We will never know because Unity kind of just shot themselves. No, you know what? They didn't shoot themselves in the foot. They kind of just sucked on the barrel of the gun.
You won't ruin our stocks. We will.
Essentially, that's ended up what happening. And like, my God, I didn't even think that was possible to like, even with all the reasonings out there, it doesn't change the fact, regardless, that Unity still made a very poor decision that, in this case, nobody liked. Not even some of the Unity workers themselves liked this policy. And obviously, too, there was also like a claim rumor that the HR desk was getting piles and piles of resignation letters from the Unity workers.
Yeah, I'm pretty. I think everyone can be fairly confident in saying that the Unity workers had not probably had no notice of what was going on. Like really, just out of the blue for them as well, for the most part.
If anything, they were probably told about that like internally. That was how they knew about it. That's why they were addressing concerns to like higher ups. But obviously, the higher ups didn't really relay those concerns up to the executives.
I feel
So if
like
any-
in reality, like
makes
the
sense to me.
concerns of the workers all they were going to be like is, oh, we'll think about it. Essentially, we'll think about it, and we're never going to actually take their concerns into consideration.
Oh yeah, that is pretty much about it too. That is about what happened. But due to all this, they did at least give out an open letter to our community. Let's go ahead and read this, boys. I'm gonna just go ahead and pop this into the stream real quick. But
Yep.
each and one of you
Project
probably.
it.
Yep. Let's go for it. Here it is. An open letter
Use the
to
new
our
technology.
Yes. By Mark Whitten. Published on September 22nd. Oh boy, guys. Hopefully, who likes to do popcorn reading? Nobody. Anyways, let's move on.
If you're gonna read it so everyone can see it, you might want to increase the magnification. Zoom
It's
in
fine.
a bit.
Oh,
Okay.
fine. Oh, God. So, here it is, everybody. To go and read this. So, to our community, I'm Mark Whitten, and I lead Unity Create, which includes the Unity engine and editor teams. I want to start with this. I am sorry. Cool. It's not like we haven't heard that like 1,000
That's a good
times.
start.
Yeah.
Excellent start to
Good
an
start.
article.
Yep. It's not even an article. This is actually letter published by
Oh, a
this.
letter. Shit, yeah.
Yeah. So this is, we should have spoken with more of you, and we should have incorporated more of your feedback before announcing our new runtime fee policy. Our goal with this policy is to ensure we can continue to support you today and tomorrow and keep deeply investing in our game engine. Now, the
Pause.
thing is, yes.
Did the public, were they ever aware of what Unity was about to do?
That's how we knew about it.
Well, I thought
I'm
we
sure
knew about
not.
it as it happened, not like,
Oh, okay. It
not,
did.
not like they
as
were
it-
warning us that they were about to slam dunk
Yeah, I'm
everyone.
sure they didn't. I'm sure they didn't tell him beforehand. They
Yeah,
did
they didn't
tell him beforehand.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
so
by the time that was
I don't know what
released,
that sentence means then.
Yeah. So essentially, the whole thing about it, they were in this case saying that
I
we
think-
should have spoken to you
okay.
more. That's supposed to be good
Yeah,
practice. You're expected to.
I think what they did is they talked with big businesses about this, because from what they were claiming before this letter was released, their previous statement, what they were claiming is, I think around 10% of something will actually be affected by this fee or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's a little
Little-
that's very interesting.
You're undershooting it, bud.
It's like, I mean, here's the thing about it. He is technically correct that only 10% of the developers would actually still be affected by that. But you have to count into the fact of how much of the developers will still need to be affected by that 10%. Like in this case, it's not just like 10 people or 10 developers that are just using Unity. It's a whole ass community. 10% of that community is still a lot.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And affected doesn't tell you how crippled they are going to be by it.
Yeah. And if anything, this even tells like the people at the lower end too that like, yeah, we're just not forced to like make any more money or like actually do well. Because if we do well, we're just gonna get slapped with a runtime fee. Doesn't matter what you do.
Mhm.
It's like essentially the whole system itself feels like it's meant to just punish you for succeeding. That's what it
Or
felt
profit off of your success, and like, you don't get me wrong, I'm like, if someone's gonna profit off of the success, especially like a game engine, like, sure, to a degree, but like the method they were going about, it was like a leech. They were
Yeah,
they were gonna suck you dry.
Very.
Yeah, that
Okay.
it was terrible. But let's go ahead and keep reading. You are what makes Unity great, and we know we need to listen and work hard to earn your trust. We have heard your concerns, and we are making changes in the policies we announced to address them. Well, here it is. Our Unity personal plan will remain free, and there will be no runtime fee for games built on Unity Personal. We will be increasing the cap from $100,000 to $200,000, and we will remove the requirements to use the Made with Unity splash screen. Now, I don't exactly know, Victor, if that part is actually that important.
The Made with Unity, not really. It's just a splash screen that shows in the beginning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people
when you
have
start
already
the game. That's not important.
Yeah,
yeah,
you
people
see it
have
all the
already
time,
made
it doesn't mean
mods
anything.
that like skip that shit anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but the increasing from 100,000 to 200,000, that's significant because, well, I mean, a lot of indie game developers probably make around that range,
Like between
around that
those range.
like the yeah, around that range. So now you effectively just allowed more people
To
to
still
not
like
pay
profit.
your to to not pay for your fee, which is essentially making you less money. It's very
Yeah.
interesting. Very interesting move.
Yeah. In
And
this
there's
case,
absolutely no runtime fees for Unity personnel as well. So yeah, it's an interesting move to say the absolute least. Like I
Yeah.
What are the restrictions with Unity Personal?
I think it's just
$200,000.
support really.
That's just the money. That's just the amount of revenue you can make, and then
Yeah.
less support.
Yeah. Yeah, in this case. And also, no game with less than $1 million in trailing 12-month revenue will be subject to the fee. So this just means too that like if you made $1 million, let's say in the last 12 months too, you still won't be subjected to the fee. Because a lot of times it does fluctuate a lot of times too, like how like well your games sell versus like other things. This also brings into question too, like what if in this case you as a single indie dev gets in this case picked up by a well-known streamer, and next thing you know, oh shit, I'm making so much money. Oh shit, here comes the fees.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, that's also like another big issue that this caused as well. Like even trying to support the game would actually kill developers.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That is the insane part about all this. But now
I
in
think
this
that
case,
runtime fee, the runtime fee before, like they charged it no matter how much money you made, right?
no, it was still like
The
a
initial one?
and yeah, it's still in this case required you to make certain amount of revenue and the download or
Even the first
lifetime
time,
install.
even the first time they released
Yeah,
this idea.
yeah,
Oh,
it was a and condition.
okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
it wasn't that initially, or that is what they released with. It still did not sit well for everybody else, regardless.
No, yeah. I mean, either way, it's not because it is still a lot of money, even when you don't make a lot of money.
Yeah, like let's say for example, BattleBit Remastered actually that had a lot of downloads, that actually had a lot of sales. The problem with BattleBit right now is that a lot of the revenue that they have stated in their recent newsletter were going only into trying to manage servers, because holy shit, trying to run a server that you have that many players, it's not cheap at all. And
It is
then
not. It is not.
and then if Unity fully rolled this out too, this would actually kill the developers. In this case, BattleBit would actually be taken offline because they don't have the money to run servers anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the most disheartening thing about that too, about all of this shit. But yes,
Yeah.
now few more seconds for those on the Unity Pro and Unity Enterprise. We are also making changes based on your feedback. The Unity fee policy will only apply beginning with the next LTS version of Unity. For those that don't know, I think it's called Lifetime Service.
Long-term support.
Yeah, long-term support version of Unity. And
You got term right.
shipping, kind of. If I say enough words that sound about right, it will be corrected at some point. Anyways, beginning with the next LTS version of Unity, shipping in 2024 and beyond, your games that are currently shipped and the projects you are currently working on will not be included unless you chose to upgrade them to the new version of Unity. So
See, this makes sense. That makes sense. You know, like saying that every game that you already released will be subject to this fee made zero sense.
Oh yeah, because again, it's like how would they even keep track of all that? Because like some of these games too, they probably deferred as well. Also, for those that are wondering too, they even answered it as well too, that like, oh, what if that person just ends up like installing the same game over and over again? Would that incur cost? Originally they said yes, but then they said no. It's only one install per unique device. But then when they say unique device, it was like, so if anything, if I install it there, uninstall it on the Steam Deck, how would that be charged? They will charge it as 2 installs.
Yeah, or reinstalling it on my another computer.
Yeah, that
Mhm.
also counts. And it's
Yeah.
also like, what about in this case virtual machines? And they also
Oh.
said, they said technically, but at the same time, we'll trust us, bro. We have the proprietary
Hey,
measures
that
to
al-
figure that
Trust
out.
That also makes me wonder. That also makes me wonder during testing, do they count those too?
Yeah, that was also a thing. Oh yeah, no, this was also subjected to change too. This was also something that was a subject too. They would also make it so that one, having demos would have actually incurred a charge. Okay, not all demos, but then demos that have access to the full game, quote unquote, access to the full game will incur a charge. But again, how would they know?
Man.
Oh, what they know indeed. That's kind of crazy. If they count demos, I wonder if they count testing, like people at the
Like,
game
let's-
company just testing the game.
Yeah,
You know
that's-
what? They
That
keep
would be
saying
interesting.
they say all of these things like with confidence, and everyone's questioning how they would know, and they're not saying. I think
Yeah.
maybe they have far more information on every Unity user than we know. They must know
Probably.
how to distinguish it very
mean,
easily.
no,
I'm sure they
probably-
have analytics. They definitely have analytics and stuff like that. I've used it before, but I don't remember like to what extent the information that they have. So
Yeah. Because here's the thing though too, it didn't matter how they were going to answer. We all knew they would not give us an actual answer because it would actually cause two things.
yeah.
If the answer they gave us was bad too, it would make them look terrible and everybody would just immediately leave.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. I mean,
Yeah.
I still don't believe they had anything because they still won't properly answer the question.
Yeah.
But
They don't
the
have
next thing
anything
is if they do have the system already, that means that people who are developing are already using it, and if it's just from Unity Analytics, then everybody should be okay with it because they have to use it in order to run your game essentially.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But they're
And-
not saying that it's from Unity Analytics, so it's very concerning where they're getting this info from. That's the problem.
That's what I
Yeah.
mean. There must
Yeah.
be another way other than analytics that they're getting this data.
Yeah. So if anything, to any other indie devs too, like how we were saying it initially, we are all supporting you. Like in this case, we have your backs too. In this case, we also are calling out the insanity that Unity is doing too. But obviously, we understand also the plight that you guys are all going through, such as the fact that sometimes it's actually way too expensive to transition over to a new game engine. That's just flat out it. It's just way too expensive to do that, and it's better to just finish out the game that you currently have, cut it off then, and then work from the ground up to learn on a new engine instead of trying to porting stuff what you're currently working on to a new engine. That is essentially what's happening with this, but I digress. They changed it, and it's like nobody is really going to figure out like how Unity was ever going to do it. In my case too, even if they did tell them how they were essentially going to do it too, that would also make it so that there will be other third-party people that see how they're doing it and they'll create solutions to help bypass that.
Yeah,
So-
probably.
Yeah, so if anything, they really couldn't actually say anything. So that's all they gave us was like a middle of the not even middle of the road. They just stayed there like a deer looking at headlights. Because
Well, yeah, I
obviously,
mean that also made it worse. Look, none of Unity's responses helped them at all. So everything they said or didn't said just made things worse in my eyes.
yeah. And it's to the matter of like, should they have said nothing? No, that would still make it worse. So they were
Yeah.
actually fucked.
They were fucked. There was no way out of it.
And it's just like, damn. It's like the more you think about it, the worse it's like, man. Like, if anything, I don't have sympathy for those at the higher ups, but man, this is like a hard decision to like, how would you actually try to make yourself still look reputable after pulling this shit off?
Hmm.
But let's continue on. From there, unless you choose to. Now, in this case, we will make sure that you can stay on the terms applicable for the version of Unity editor you are using, as long as you would keep using that version. It's essentially saying too that like, one, you are not going to be under the new terms of service unless you have upgraded your Unreal Engine itself. If you're still working off like an older version of that, which I believe some people still have copies of it and it's somewhere available online that you can download, you are not going to be subjected to the new terms of service, as in this case, this is sort of less like an open license, essentially. So we have that going. So that's what this clause is pretty much telling us, is that unless you're running the new version, you're not going to be like subjected to practically anything we throw at you regardless. Now in this case, for games that are subjected to the runtime fee, we are giving you a choice of either a 2.5% revenue share or the calculated amount based on the number of new people engaging with your game each month. Both of these numbers are self-reported from data you already have available. You will always be billed the lesser amount. Now, this is interesting here, because right now we know in the what's currently out there in a lot of game engine developers, how they are making profits off of other game developers, is that Epic actually takes around a 5% revenue share for like you making games, but it's only after, I forgot, what was the revenue threshold? Was it around
No, it's $1 million.
Okay, after $1 million, that's when they start actually hitting you with the 5% revenue share. But regardless how people look at it, as an indie person, that's still technically way better to think about too, because you could still make $1 million without actually like hitting that cap, at least under that.
Look, I think what Epic did was just extremely straightforward. Just 5% once you make more than $1 million. That's it. Nothing, no other conditions to it. It's just a flat rate once you make past $1 million.
Yeah.
I think Unity was like adding all these fees and making things confusing, and all
they were
that
making
stuff that made it like.
Now here's the thing though. Would you think that the situation could have been better if they actually came out with this type of revenue share or the calculated model first? Or do you think it still should have been the same like result in the end?
Repeat that.
So in this case, imagine in this case too, if Unity actually came out in this case, instead of the runtime fee, that they in this case wanted to also implement a revenue share, and or also a calculated bonus for the calculated runtime fee instead, and then they'll just charge you whichever is the less amount. Would that have worked well with Unity instead?
I don't know. The issue with Unity, look, the issue with Unity, first of all, is that you already pay to use their engine.
Mm-hmm.
So once you make more than $200,000, you pay to use their engines, and it's like a couple thousand a year, something like that.
Yeah, if it's like based on that calculation.
But either way, that's not a lot when you think about it. Yeah, no, it's not. But $2,000 per seat. I think that means $2,000 per person that uses to develop a game, whatever.
Yeah, something like. But there's also in this case, the calculated amount too. Now again, I'm pretty sure that also means too, before you get billed for anything, they'll probably have you could probably just say to them, like, just bill me whatever is the lowest. And they will definitely have to bill you for that. And then probably you yourself probably have the tools, because they say as well, most of it is self-reported. So you yourself have access to the data. You can also crunch the numbers as well to make sure they're giving
the
you
highest.
You're crazy, Michael. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what Unity should do is just do like a flat rate, like Epic. Just pay a royalty and not do all this like subscription-based model and then adding on top of that royalties. That's very interesting. That's very odd to me.
Yeah.
They want to hit certain people harder.
Yeah, the mobile
developers. With the subscription-based model, they'll hit like the businesses harder, because it's, if what I'm reading is correct, is $2,000 a year per seat, which essentially means per person.
Yeah, I mean, like, the only reason I can see why there would be such a dynamic pay system is because they're trying to target certain people. Like, they're trying to skim more off the top on more successful things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like if anything too, this does not help anybody at all, no matter how we
Does not.
look at this. But right now, this is probably their best solution that they come up with. Now it's marginally way better than what they came
You
up
know-
with initially.
Hold on one second. I think we talk about Unity a lot. You know, they take like
Mhm.
how much money they take away from the developers, but
Yeah.
you also got to think that on top of what Unity is going to charge these people, they have to pay the distribution platform like Steam
Yeah.
and stuff like that
Yeah.
Mhm.
as
I
well,
think that's
or
okay.
the Google Play Store. You know,
Okay.
like they have to pay money on top of that, and then on top of what Unity charges. Crazy, bro. It's a lot
Yeah.
of money.
That is true. Didn't we already talk about how Steam does like 30% or something like that?
I don't think we've done it on the podcast.
No.
No. we
So yeah,
haven't
you'd
yet.
have to like
That
add
is
up all the
act-
percentages of everything to see how much you're really making on every sale.
Now,
All the fees, man.
Now, this is also something that would be a very interesting talk about, but in this case, let's wrap up the letter part. In this case, we want to continue to build the best engine for creators. We truly love this industry, and you are the reason why. And it's just pretty much to
You sure?
invite you to a live fireside chat and whatnot too. Okay, so in this case, TLDR, this is more or less an okay apology letter for developers and whatnot. Say we're sorry that we
let me
fucked
be
up.
honest. Let me be honest. They shouldn't have needed it in the first place.
They shouldn't have needed in the first place had they actually thought out like a proper plan.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, it happened. This had to be said now. So we buried a hatchet then. Now we're going to go into a very interesting topic that I think this is actually a very good discussion point too. Such as how do you think it becomes a lot more of a dangerous part of the industry where in this case developers are having to pay so much right now to just try to have their games hosted now? Like in this case, Steam, for example, taking 30%, that's a big chunk. And there's no like good ways.
Mobile apps the same way.
Yeah. In this case, for Steam, what is the threshold before you get hit by the 30%?
I don't know if there's a threshold. I think every sale you make is subject to that 30%. I know
On
that's
top
how
of-
it was for Google.
On top of like the $100 initial fee to set it up.
Yeah.
It's like I think it's roughly about 100. Maybe it's changed.
But regardless, but it also does bring into question too about like now in this case we look at that and then we look at like a lot of like the engine makers too. Do you think it sets up a dangerous precedence for going forward in this software space where in this case what happens now, like any software developer that makes a product for people to make stuff out of, that they start charging them for the product that they made under their stuff?
I mean, you say dangerous precedents, but let's be completely honest. It's already happening in different parts of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we take the car industry, for example. I use car because that's what I'm familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
Every supplier that a car company buys from in order to make their cars charges them a certain amount of money, right? To buy the
Yeah.
part. And then when you put the car together, then the car company selling the car will have to mark it up to a point where they can make a little bit of profit. But when you have so many suppliers, that all that money adds up. And it's the same thing here, really. Like if you have to rely on too many services, all that money will definitely start adding up. So you have to rely on the game engine, obviously, because that's how you're going to make your game.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have to rely on the platform that you distribute it on, like Steam and stuff. You're going to have to, because how else are you going to distribute it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the more things you add into your game in terms of service, then yeah, it's gonna take away from your revenue a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also the more links in the chain, the more that the consumer is going to have to pay. It's always how it turns out.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
like businesses are out to make a profit. You know, you don't make a product that doesn't make you money unless you're like a nonprofit or like one of those open source things. But that's a different story.
Yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. It's like these platforms that you host it on or that you use to build your game on, they have to make money somehow, because otherwise they just disappear and then there goes the engine or there goes the service. Bye. But
Yeah.
it's how much they try to like charge. Like 30% for Steam, that's extreme. What Unity was trying to do, massive. Like it's going to start affecting if people don't start realizing a lot of these things are trying, like people are trying to pass these things and are trying to get this stuff done, like where everyone is charging the game developer. Like you're all going to feel it in your wallet in the end, because the game developer is going to have to make their game like $20-$30 more expensive just to make some sort of profit off of it.
Yeah. Why do you think like
Yeah.
AAA games are trying to advocate for $70 price tags now?
That's just too much.
It is.
But
Even
obviously-
60 for a long time
But-
has really been a lot, but now they're really ramping it up.
what I think they need to do is 70 is okay as long as they don't add anything extra. But that's also the problem they do.
Mhm.
But $70, if they don't add anything else to it, like no DLCs, nothing else to it, it's perfectly fine. It's actually a fully fleshed out game. I think it's fine, but they don't do that, and that's why it's a problem.
They're never fully released. Like they're
Yeah,
always
that's
like
what I'm saying.
half baked
Yeah.
and like DLCs
know.
out the ass.
I know. I understand. That's why I'm saying that's the problem here. That's the main problem, not the $70. I don't think $70 is a real problem.
I think it's the fact
But-
too that they expect us to pay a lot for, like in this case, incompleted shit.
Yeah.
On the promise
But-
that they'll fix it later.
Yeah. Also, what I think is a better business model, which are probably a lot of people won't agree, is making the game free and then adding microtransaction to it.
You're right.
And-
I don't agree.
Not paying, not
Now, here's the thing.
not
I
paying
was
for the
also
game and also adding in microtransactions.
Well,
Yeah.
like, I'm fine with some games that do it, but if all games did that, I feel like it would turn into an advertisement and microtransaction hell. Like it really
they
would
were
become.
originally. It was originally going to be that until there was pushback on microtransaction for like full price like DLC or full price.
Well, that's what I mean.
games.
I feel like the quality of the games are going to take a hit because microtransactions, aren't going to just pertain to like cosmetics and stuff. They're going they ultimately will move more towards giving people edges within these games, and it's just going to start
That's what
really.
MMOs are.
I know
Yeah.
it's just going to start. Well, if every game became that, that would start really rooting the quality of it.
I mean, here's the problem, Michael. It's already becoming like that, especially.
That's
look
why
at
I don't buy AAA games. They suck.
But this actually brings it to another topic too that I also want to go dive a little bit more into the game development sphere too. I did posted a video, Michael, if you saw that a while back, about like a former Fallout developer kind of goes into what's currently plaguing a lot of game developments at the moment. And it's something that is very insightful. In this case, I'll probably tell one of his 3 stories on there. If you guys don't know who it is, this is Timothy Kane. You can find his video online on YouTube called Game Development Caution. It's a very insightful piece about like how his experience working in the game industry. There are problems too that I think, if anything, kind of built into the like why in this case games take longer. Why do our games so much more expensive kind of deal? And in one of these stories too, you know how in this case in game development there are job boards that are made so that people can look at these job boards and be like, okay, what do we need to work on today? Oh, there's this too. Okay, we can start working on this. You go ahead and take this task and just work on that. Let me know in like the next like 15 minutes or 30 minutes of where you're at, or at the end of the day. Just give me like anything after your progress on that, and da-di-da-di-da. Everybody gets sorted out what to do for a task. In his story though, there was even a developer that says that, okay, or not him, Timothy Kane decides to say, hey, can you work on this feature? And the developer just says flat out, no. If I see you put my name on there, I'm flat out quitting. I was like, what, why? It's just like, but it's fine. It's nothing even that serious. Nope, I'm gonna quit if I see my name remotely in there, because that would imply other things that Or even if you don't put my name on there, it would still imply. It's just like, okay.
You're gonna have to elaborate a little bit on that. I actually ended up not. I haven't watched the video yet, so
Okay. It's essentially like, for people that also don't know too, we're also sort of less an aspiring indie dev stuff. We won't really elaborate too much, but the job board that we do use is called Jira. And in Jira, you can actually like make tasks and then assign tasks to people. What the Timothy Kane was going with too is that he was going to go ahead and assign this task to someone, and then that developer went up to him and says that no, if I see my name put on there, I will refuse to work, or if anything, I'll just straight up quit. It was like, oh, okay, I'm fine with also not putting your name on it, but can you also do it? It was like, no, that just means that people are just gonna expect me to do that. It was just like, what?
they were asking him to do his job, and they didn't want to, and he didn't want to do it.
Yep, essentially, it's what it felt like.
It sounds like he should have just called his bluff and told him to quit. Found something different if he wasn't going to work.
Pretty much. And then another story that goes with that is that he was trying to work out a simple feature such as target priorities, right? Where for him, he would actually be able to make something like this relatively easily, like in 45 minutes. But in this case, because he's like kind of leading a team too, he wanted to like send this out to like his teams below him, and then they will spit him back out like how long this feature would take to implement. And if anything, they just said it will take 4 weeks to make this change. Now for him, it's just like, what the fuck? Why 4 weeks? This shouldn't take that long. And then when he is asked about it, they clearly did not clarify, or they didn't even tell him why it would take him 4 weeks. They just said it can't be done. We need more time. I was like, okay, could you tell me like what's going on and whatnot too? And they wouldn't elaborate. It's like, okay, that's fine, I could do it myself. And then they also said no, then that means they would be incompetent and they would just quit.
Oh my gosh.
So it's very weird. Right now, what's currently happening in a lot of game devs industry. Now, this doesn't apply to everywhere, because I'm pretty sure there are some really good game developers that are actually doing the work. But obviously, you are going to have bad actors in your development company.
You're going to have bad actors everywhere in life.
Yeah. And effectively, the whole story kind of sounds like, man, these guys just don't want to be held accountable at all. They just want to sit in their chairs and actually make money and just collect the green. Now, there's nothing wrong with that if it's a job that you don't like. But in the game industry part, we don't need people like that.
I think that's wrong.
Yeah, I
just
think
getting
it's
free
wrong
money
too.
is definitely wrong, no matter what you're doing.
Because realistically, like, sure, like everyone needs to make money at the end of the day, but you're holding a position hostage that someone else may actually be passionate about and really wants to work in. But you're holding it and making everything worse because you're getting paid.
But that's one thing. The other thing is, if you have that mentality and everybody has that same mentality, the business is out of business.
Yeah.
Because you're not making a product.
No, it's terrible, actually. In this case, Michael, how would you feel about like if you were leading a team too, and they kind of said this shit to you? Like, you expect in this case, a feature should not take more than like a week to implement into the build. And then they give you this. How would you feel?
I legitimately would probably start looking at applications. I would start to see who is wanting the positions that they so desperately are like not working in. And I would be like, hey, I think I'm about to hire Jim John over here instead of you, bud.
I was like, but that's in this case. But that's fucked up. That's toxic work culture.
It's do your damn job. That's what I'm paying you for. It's what you're getting paid to do.
But yeah, it's anything like I'm agreeing with you on that. But there's also like a common thing that's happening too, such as there's not a lot of communications that's happening for both like from top down to even the developers on the ground. Just because to him, Timothy Kane, he probably didn't even know like what that developer was currently working on, or if anything, the feature that he wanted him to implement was even that high up on a priority. So there's a lot of context we don't know, but it doesn't help regardless that the developer still did not say why they would take it for 4 weeks. Why it would still take them 4 weeks to like roll out the feature.
Yeah, if your boss is asking why you've estimated that long, you should probably have a reason.
Yeah. Or at least like a good enough reasoning where he would be understanding about
If
okay,
if your reason is if you truly it has to take a month to do something and they ask why and it's like a legitimate reason, I imagine they would understand for the most part and like work with you to help you. But if you're being very shady about it, like I don't know, that's a whole different level.
yeah. Probably shady and not even like the best way either. Probably the developers don't even know how to directly communicate that. That's also another issue too.
Hey guy, it's gonna take me about 4 weeks to get this done because Bill is on vacation and Mary is out on maternity leave. I have a short-handed staff.
And also, I don't want to do anything.
Yeah. Also, I just want to collect my check at the end of the day, and the longer we keep working on this, the longer you keep me. So, as soon as this game gets released, my job is on the line here. So, I'm just gonna make it take 14 years. You know?
Yeah.
It's good style.
Yeah, it's like it's already bad enough too that like I don't think games are purposely that long because of like people like that, but the stories themselves, it's really hard to really try to say that like I don't want to believe that's true, but with the current way how games are made too, I don't know. It feels way more believable than for me like I want to like discredit that. How in this case, how do you all feel?
Let's all get hired at a gaming place and do like an internal investigation, and we'll come back like journalists and talk about it here.
It's like, damn, we all become investigative journalists instead.
Yeah.
Man. Well, if anything, that is if we can't get a job into those spaces to begin with.
You likely won't.
Probably not. Here's what we can do. We could probably start up like a small LLC, hire us as a contractor, because game developers love contractors.
Oh, there we go. We'll spit out fake games that don't really exist. Like just like little mobile games, like a ton of them.
Hey, Victor,
they'll be like,
put
wow,
those 4 mobile games into the portfolio.
Yeah. Wow, they're doing it out in volume really quickly. They must be able to work.
I'll remake them if I have to.
It's like, who cares? If you need to remake them, would they even check if it's actually working? Especially how this is going. Obviously, though, I think the way how this is, at least to me, I think North American game industries are at a fucking shit show of like debacle. Like, I think me and you, Victor, we talked about this briefly too off podcast, where I think it would be better to, the only reason why there's a lot of communication issues is the fact that there's so much bureaucracy that happens within the game industry too. Like, you as like a first or entry level or low level like coder too, as you're trying to address concerns about it too, you can't at least address it directly to, like in this case, your main lead of this whole project, because of the fact that this is not actually going to be able to be done on time because, hey, I hit a snag, I need more time dedicated on this. Do you think you could allow us, like, at least for this feature to be pushed off to next week, or can you replan all this? I'm pretty sure the lead would actually be understanding, they would actually work around that. But obviously they had to be set to the manager, and then the manager would loosely say that to the manager above him, and that manager will probably say that version of that manager is very loosely to that one, so that one, he doesn't feel incompetent in front of the lead. So it's like, I think needs to be a system where developers can directly state their concerns to the higher ups without having the need of a manager, like in a way too. If in this case the urgency of this issue, it needs to be addressed by the lead, and not like in this case that you want to send this up to the lead, but you have to send this request to the manager, and then that manager approves that and then sends it to above him, and then so forth. It's like a lot of unnecessary things that also like bring down development time. Just because one, there probably are millions of issues that they're still gonna go through, but obviously they're not actually being addressed accordingly. Just because one, the team lead probably doesn't know like how important any of these issues are because they're probably coming at him at a slow rate.
Hmm.
So that was something that we thought about too. And the best model that we've seen it done too would be Tesla, where despite how many of you kind of see Elon Musk, he would at least hear out the people below him. Now, what he does with the information from those below him is up to his discretion, and whether if it's right or wrong, that's not up for me to say. Only because I've heard stories too that like Elon Musk would actually just start yelling at some of his workers because of like some shit.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Is there anything else that you guys want to like ask about this thing? Or if anything, Michael, you have any further questions or you want to make any statements?
I don't necessarily have any further questions, but I just mean, why is everything in decline? Why does it feel like everything's in a decline?
Hey, not everything's in a decline. Right now, more than ever, indie development space has been thriving super well.
You know, I'm very happy for that, honestly, because I feel like the I feel like the indie community seems to, for the most part, bring in a lot of unique and interesting ideas and game concepts.
Mhm.
I'm
Because
never
they're the ones that are taking risks.
Yeah, but it kind of follows the same trend a little bit in Unity. Excuse me, I always want to say Unity for some reason, but in indie development, where like a trend really kicks off, and then like you don't necessarily have people who expand on it; they kind of just copy it. And I'm not like necessarily opposed to that concept, that idea, but I hope it doesn't always. I hope it's not always like that. Like I hope there's not like blatant ripoffs and such, because then it will. Then I feel like it would slowly start to turn into like how the AAA industry started moving in the direction where
Yeah.
it just started really copying like great and brilliant ideas from other AAA games and really just kind of melded. Like it was really odd. Like everything felt like they were all under the same umbrella. Like they weren't unique. It was really weird. Like a lot of shooters fell into this after like Fortnite and such.
I will say that too. It is some things that it will happen to a lot of like, no matter if it's an indie development state or AAA state as well, there will always be like ripoffs of some others. But obviously, the market will definitely be able to ring out what is a good product.
I think in the end of the day, the market will decide whether it was truly a ripoff or a better successor to a certain thing.
Yeah. Because the thing about it with a lot of AAA game developments, the only reason why they say this too is also because of the fact too that they don't want to lose money. And also they are, in this case, if it was like a true capitalist like market space too, they are like terrified of that. Because if that were the case, if it's a true capitalist market, they would actually go under less than a week. Just because of the fact that if it was truly like that, it would instantly show they would not get revenue, and yeah, they would just go under. Some of the things that me and Victor probably advocate for, probably way too much, is if some game developers just release bad products after bad products after bad products, they should just go under the sole purpose is that this is the true capitalist mindset.
Yeah, but sometimes they have so much money to the blow that like they can keep making like the same mistake over and over and over again and be like relatively fine.
Cool. That means they should use some of that capital to fucking fix what's going wrong. Therefore,
Well, maybe if gamers didn't just keep buying the same crap.
maybe, but only time will tell when that will actually improve. Honestly, oh man. But right now, if there's nothing more that we can really talk about right now, I think this is pretty much we can cut off here. Then,
All right.
any other
That's
any
good.
closing statement?
Wrapping up point.
Yeah. So, any closing statements for y'all too?
Yeah.
Yeah, people should start using Godot more. I want to see more games in that. I
I
want to
was-
use it personally.
I was gonna say, like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube video. Give us a good
Do
old
what now?
thumbs up. Ring that notification bell.
Please hit me.
Comment down what you want to see on the the next podcasts.
Yeah, please give me that engagement.
We read
Let us know
your
what you
comments.
think about this whole Unity fiasco.
Yeah, if you're also a game dev too, reach out to us and we would love to hear stories. I think that's the best thing about it.
Tell us your horror stories or your love stories of of it all.
Preferably not the love stories. I don't want that much detail.
Yes.
Give me all your horror love stories.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, anyways, good night, y'all.
Good night.
Good night.